So hi everyone, my name is Itai Green, nice meeting you all, and today we're going to have a webinar around the hot issue of working from home. And the first part, we're going to host Professor Panish Purnam and Dr. Marco Minervini from INSEAD. They are based in Singapore. Hi Panish and Marco.
Hi Itai.
Hi. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Itai. So Marco and I are both at INSEAD, and as you might know, INSEAD is a global business school with campuses in France, Singapore, Abu Dhabi, and now San Francisco. So both Marco and I work in the Singapore campus. And I've been actually studying remote collaboration for many, many years, much before COVID-19 hit. But I'm going to describe briefly today the results of a new survey that Marco and I launched in February this year in response to COVID-19. And we'll talk about why we felt the survey was important to do, because there are some important differences between working from home now versus working remotely before. And then we will also talk a little bit about what one might do differently going forward, particularly after the pandemic is as well. All right, so let me share my screen here and we get started. So the first point I want to take a few minutes to make is that it's not a completely new topic. We knew a fair bit about remote working much before COVID. Now, how did we know it? Well, because if you work in any large multinational company, you are working remotely, at least to some extent. This has always been true and has been true for more than a couple of decades now. In particular, I actually studied remote working quite closely in the context of offshore software development and distributed R&D. Right? And Israel is one of the world's capitals for distributed R&D work. So this is not a new phenomenon. We know it exists. And of course, there was also open source collaboration in open source communities where, again, people are working from all around the world. So it's not a completely new phenomenon. And what we knew about remote collaboration from studying all these instances were the following. The big problem with remote comes in two forms. First, a lot of the communication is not synchronous, which means it cannot happen in real time. Now, some of it can, like video conferencing, but a lot of it can't because of time zone differences. So essentially, there are delays in communication, which then possibly lead to misunderstandings, which can lead to disagreements, which might have been resolved very easily in a face-to-face interaction, but they're not because of the time lag. So that is one problem. The second big problem was the quality of the media. So you can see me, I can see your facial expressions, but I can't see your body language. I can't see the context you are in. I can't understand the background to what it is that you're experiencing now, all of which we take for granted when we're talking face to face, right? This is a problem. But beyond these problems of the channel, if you like, there's also a structural problem. The structural problem is when you go to work in a physical office environment, there is a very powerful effect, which we call random interactions. So these are the serendipitous meetings near the coffee machine, near the elevator, near the lifts, which you didn't plan for. And these bring you into contact with people who you are not officially expected to be in contact with. They're not in the org chart. They're not in any reporting relationship. But these kind of informal random interactions, they're actually the life and blood of the organization. That's where a lot of the innovation, new thinking, novelty seeking, that's where it comes from. And when you move out of the physical environment, you lose all of that. That was the problem. Now, there were also some advantages. This is not all bad news. The biggest advantage actually is flexibility, right? I already mentioned the time zone differences. And if you think back to the offshoring of software and R&D, which was really a big wave in the late 90s and early 2000s, the two big drivers were first cost, because wage differences were very large across countries like China and India and Israel versus the US. But the second big advantage was not cost, it was actually time arbitrage. So people could work flexibly around the world. So you could work anywhere, anytime. That's always been known to be a big advantage of working from home, which I will come back to later after Marco talks about the survey. So it turns out this is actually one of the things that matters a lot right now, even for those of us working in the same time zone from home. The reason being, when you're working from home currently in this current COVID situation, we're also dealing with spouses who are working from home and children who are at home from school. So getting everybody together at the same place at the same time for a meeting, even if you're in the same time zone, can be quite hard. So flexibility continues to be quite important. we'll talk about how we can achieve that. The other interesting and subtle effect we knew was that if you worked remotely, not face-to-face, some of the biases we get in group decision making, where for instance, the most high status individual gets to have the most airtime or ends up making most of the decisions. Minorities can feel underconfident. They may not speak up. They may not make their voice heard. So some of these problems actually become weaker once you start working online, which is a plus. So it wasn't all bad news. And the last thing we knew was that there were actually some systematic differences in the strategies one can use for coordinating remote work, whether it's working from home or offshoring or open source. And broadly speaking, we can think about these strategies as seeing the face versus seeing the hands. And there's also a strong tendency to overemphasize seeing the face. So what do I mean by this? So let's think about it like this. If you have two teams which are working in different locations, right? These can be two teams, or they can be just two individuals in different locations. And they need to coordinate their work. They depend on each other for workflow or information to make their decisions or make their inputs. How do I manage this need for coordination? So broadly speaking, I can try and restructure the work so that I eliminate the need for coordination. So this is called the modularization strategy. I try to black box it. I try to make it a module. I try to create a silo. You can also think of it as working blind, because once you have created the silo, they can work independently without taking into account how the other person is doing. Not great for social interaction, but can be very good for effective coordination. That's one approach. The other approach is to actually accept that you will need to coordinate across these locations and find ways to manage that coordination more actively. So if the approach on the left is a complete blind solution, where you can modularize, where you don't even need to be aware of the other, the approaches on the right either involve seeing the face, which is ongoing communication through video conferencing, what we're doing right now, or it could be seeing the hands. It's tacit coordination, where I don't necessarily use video conferencing, but I use shared files, shared repositories, collaborative authoring documents like Google Doc, for example. And that helps us to work tacitly without necessarily having to see each other face to face. And in fact, even allows us to work across time zones, because some of that can be done asynchronously, right? So this was the state of the art, if you like, in January this year. These are things we knew. Now, the reason why we thought what we know is not complete is there are a couple of big differences with this COVID-19 shock. The first big difference is that unlike before, we didn't work from home by choice. All the past surveys prior to 2020 January were conducted on people who were allowed or chose to work from home. And therefore, when you ask them, were you more or less productive, you are getting a biased estimate of the effect of working from home. After January 15, 2020, roughly speaking, this was a global experiment in which people didn't really have a choice. So we might get very different answers. So you may not get as many people saying they like working from home or their productivity went up. You may get more, you may get less, we really don't know, right? This is the first problem. Second, the big difference between this way of working from home compared to everything before is it's really everybody working from home, not just you, but all your colleagues and your spouse and your kids. So this would also change quite significantly some of the insights we had from the past. So given this context, what Marco and I thought around the beginning of February was we should launch a survey very quickly, which was aimed primarily at the INSEAD alumni, as well as the ecology around them on LinkedIn. So to be fair, this is not a generalizable set of results that apply to all work everywhere, but it does capture, if you like, a fairly broad slice of people who are knowledge workers. So white collar workers who are mostly working in office-like contexts with knowledge, making decisions, writing advertising campaigns, software, R&D, sales, marketing, strategy, finance. These are the kind of jobs which this survey is going to capture. Marco, can I turn it over to you to talk us through the results?
Okay. As Panisha said, there are a couple of caveats. So the responses are mostly representative of the INSEAD LinkedIn ecology. And then another caveat that is mostly methodological is that we got both part of the answers. So both what are the conditions in which the workers work in, and for instance, the measure of productivity from the same source. From a statistical point of view, that might be problematic. This is simply, this is a very simple caveat. Let's start with the first finding of our survey. The first finding is that technology seems to be more ready than organizations. So the first answer was, one of the question was whether they agreed that technology infrastructure was effective of supporting remote work, and 80% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed on that. So technology seems to be ready. On the other side is that if you still look at the measures on whether organizations were ready, well, only 52% agreed on the fact that their manager were supporting their remote work effectively. And only 60% agreed that their organizational procedures were supportive of them working remotely. I guess that there are two stories in here. The first one is that companies were correct in focusing on technology first. So we're not saying that they were totally wrong, you know. Companies were correct in focusing on the fact that given that all remote is also all digital, they need to get technology right as first. But as a second point, the message is that companies need to focus to get organization and organizational design, the design of work, in a better way and to get it right. And this is the message for companies. For startup, the message is communication technologies that are related to communications are working properly. There's not a gap there. There is a gap instead on technologies that can support organizations and company to get the organizational design and the design of work properly. This is one of the first findings. Then we also clearly wanted to answer to the question, are people more or less productive when working from home? And 41% of the respondents reported higher productivity. So reported that they were more productive after the shock, after working from home. While 35% reported that there was no difference in productivity, and 24% instead reported a productivity decline. So still we see pretty big chunk of productivity improvement. Or we always have to keep in mind the caveat. We're talking about knowledge, mostly about knowledge worker in the INSEAD ecosystem. But it's not only important to figure out how this self-reported productivity is distributed, but the most important aspect that we wanted to figure out was what are the positive and negative correlates of productivity. And one factor that positively affects productivity is hierarchical level. So we asked to our respondent at which hierarchical level they were in. We divided hierarchical level in 3 groups. The managers of managers, so the ones that have at least one manager as a report. The managers, the ones that are no managers as a report, but they manage other people, and then the subordinates. We saw that the biggest effect, so the ones that reported the highest self-reported productivity, the ones that have reported the highest self-reported productivity were the managers of managers. And here we have 2 potential explanations. One is mostly that we are capturing with hierarchical level, we are also capturing wealth. And the wealthiest are the ones that could enjoy more space and better space for isolating and work properly. On the other side, one other potential explanation is that managers of managers are gaining some isolation from the lot of stimuli they might get within the company, within the organization. So there's no one knocking on the door, and so they're more able to isolate and work on this stuff. One other strong predictor of higher self-reported productivity is having a previous experience in working remotely. I would say that looking carefully about the data, the biggest gap is between the ones that never work remotely and the ones that they were working remotely at least once a month. So it was not much of high frequency, but at least the gap is between the ones that had at least small experience in working remotely compared to the ones that never work remotely. And we think that in this respect, there might be even a learning path. So there's a need to learn how to work remotely. What is also interesting is that instead there was no effect of industry, company size, and nature of work. What does that mean? Still keeping in mind the caveat, we are talking about mostly knowledge workers. So at office, well, if we are talking about workers in the office, the type of industry become less effective. So if we were talking about people at a lower level or lower level of organization where they were not performing knowledge jobs, there might be differences in industry, but there's no difference in industry for people working in the office, as the nature of the work is pretty homogeneous across these people. So if someone is claiming, oh, our industry is different, is particularly different, well, this type of evidence would claim exactly the opposite. Then another strong positive predictor of productivity is work-life balance. So the ones that reported having a higher work-life balance also reported a higher self-reported productivity. And one strong predictor, both of work-life balance and of productivity and self-reported productivity, is the avoidance of commuting. So the ones that we had an answer a question in which we asked to the subject whether they were happy of avoiding commuting, the ones that were the most happy about avoiding commuting were the ones that reported higher self-reported productivity. But there are also some negative correlates. And one is related to missing social interaction. So the ones that were they were more afraid of not having social interaction with colleagues were the ones that reported a lower self-reported productivity. And what's also interesting is that we also distinguish between two groups. The one that needed social interaction for performing some job-related task, and the one that do not needed any type of social interaction and communication to perform job-related tasks. And the effect is there for both the categories. So the story here is not that they need a missed social interaction for job-related things. It's mostly they are missing social interaction because work is a social environment and we need to somewhat preserve that. The other aspect that is, as Panish mentioned, was particularly relevant and a particularly relevant negative predictor of self-reported productivity was actually distractions at home. So the ones that reported to have more distractions at home reported a lower self-reported productivity. And by looking also at the comment, we have a text part, also looking at that text part, it was clear that many people claim that no, this is not the usual working from home. There are a lot of other stresses on my daily activity that comes from my home. So I have a lot of distraction at home, and so that's reduced productivity. Another question that we ask is on which type of tools workers were relying on heavily in responses to this shock. Many people reported that they were using text, emails, and chats. Others were reporting, and the scale was from 1 to 5. Others were reporting to rely extensively on video calls, and we see that. There was far less reliance instead on tools that are like shared repositories, as Panish mentioned, collaborative authoring and shared repositories. And there was even less reliance on something that looks like an old tool, like a phone and phone calls. There was high reliance on phone calls only from managers or managers. What this tell us? This data tell us that there's still a strong tendency to default to synchronous communications tools, and the asynchronous tools like repositories are the ones on which people rely less on. And this somewhat makes sense because we know from existing evidence is that the first action that many organizations would do when moving to remote is trying to reproduce the existing way of working, so the existing reliance on synchronous tools. While might be that there might be alternative ways. As we said, if you need to manage the coordination, you can reduce coordination, so use modularization. You can manage instead need for coordination, and you can either rely on tacit communication, which is synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous would mean collaborative tools, asynchronous would be mostly repositories with strong documentation. But what we observe is that most of the people are still relying on see-the-face solution, still relying on ongoing communication. And that could be highly problematic, especially in light of this lack of flexibility that was mentioned before, and to what degree this high distraction at home could affect negatively the productivity of individuals. Now I leave the floor to Panish for the managerial recommendations. Panish, you are muted.
Thank you. So I'm going to sum up by saying a few recommendations which are following up from where Marco left off, not just relevant for today as we're dealing still with remote work, but possibly some of these may also be important going forward post the pandemic. Okay, so what are these different ideas here? I think the remote working shock created by COVID has given us a great opportunity to think once more from ground zero about our work processes. So it's an opportunity to redesign organizations, right? And I will say more about why we think now is the right time, but it is really an opportunity to rethink where do we really need co-location. We've taken co-location and physical interaction as something for granted. But if you start thinking about it as a luxury, which is still extremely valuable, but must be used very strategically, it might change quite a bit the way that we currently work. So it might lead to a very different set of designs, a very different set of work processes and workflows. And I truly suspect that's the nature of the future, because this pandemic is not a one-off, right? Instances like this are probably going to become part of the new normal. So we will have to really ask ourselves, does it make sense for our health, for the environment, and for the health of the world to have lots of people in crowded conditions traveling long distances to work every day? And if we don't have, what can we do about it? Socialization. There are different ways one can think about this problem. One is, can we try and find online substitutes for socialization? And there are some solutions like that, including from gaming companies, from online interaction companies, online team building companies. And if you see youngsters, like I have a 15-year-old boy, and the way he interacts with his friends online when playing PS4 is quite eye-opening, because for them, socialization in that way is extremely normal. That's how they do it. But a different way to think about it is a world where your work may be global, but your socialization is local. So you might end up developing much deeper, meaningful relationships in your local neighborhood, in your home, in your building, in your local context. But work is really mostly done online. Who's to say that is not a better solution where we are today? Third, data. So one aspect of, positive aspect, if you like, of what's happening right now is because we're all working on Zoom and Microsoft Teams or Slack or Yammer or whichever is your favorite tool, we are leaving a digital exhaust of how we collaborate together, which is amazingly rich data on how our organizations are working. So imagine how we would have gotten similar data in the past. We would have run surveys with very low response rates. Now we have the equivalent of a survey with 100% response rate. So we really have extraordinarily rich data to try and rethink how our organizations are working. And linking back to the first point, how might we redesign them in order to work better? And last but not the least, I think this is really a fantastic opportunity for managers, people who coordinate and direct others, to hone up on their skills for managing virtual teams, because there are differences. In particular, your communication has to really become sharp. So there is no room for second explanation or clarification or justification informally in the corridor. What you say online has to be said once, it leaves a permanent record, and there is no room for clarification later. So it really changes quite significantly how we communicate with each other. It also puts a lot of weight on documentation. So the more discipline we develop quickly of documenting what we have to say, the easier it becomes to coordinate asynchronously without forcing everybody to be in a video call at some strange time of the day. Let me stop there. Itai, I turn it back to you. If there are a couple of questions, we can take them now, or we'll be happy to take them on chat later.
Thank you very much, Professor Purnam and Dr. Minervini. The audience, we have a few minutes for your questions. You can type it on the chat. and our friends from Singapore will be happy to answer.
Okay, so I do see a question from one person who's asking, not sure I understand the difference between seeing the hands and seeing the work. So let me explain that. Seeing the hands would be the case where we are working in real time, for instance, on a Google Doc. So in real time, I can see the work that somebody else is doing. They can see the work that I'm doing. So we're not seeing the face, we're actually seeing the hand, right? Now contrast that, for instance, with a situation where we are really talking about just seeing the work, not the live interaction of the hands as they're typing it out. So this might be asynchronous. So you might leave a file in Dropbox with what you've done, with detailed notes, and I pick it up next morning. And if your notes are clear enough, I don't need to call you back again to ask for explanation. So that's seeing the work. Okay, I also see some questions. Q&A. Marco, do you want to take any of these, or should I try and take some?
Oh, yes.
What would be the most? Yeah, go ahead, Marco.
There's a question on what interesting ways of bridging the gap of informal communication have you seen? I think that at this point, the most mature technology we've seen is the donut that is built on Slack. And the idea of donut is basically trying to create some informal communication just by creating a chat between two members of the organization randomly. So whoever wants to chat with someone goes into this donut channel, and this donut channel will allocate someone else with whom you can talk with. And one other solution that I found that was interesting in terms of building informal communication within a company instead, it comes from GitLab. What they did is that they built some Slack channels on topics that are usually discussed in informal communication in the office. But in this case, it's even easier to find people that have the same type of hobbies. For instance, there was a channel on soccer. There was a channel of gardening. There was a channel on dad jokes. So whoever was interested on something could find a venue that is a channel in which they could discuss about things that were of their interest.
Okay, I also see a question about mostly your focus has been on internal to the organization. How about relationships with clients? It's a great question, which really I think goes to the heart of the issue of trust, right? So I think my own view on trust building, particularly in online, so this is not a topic that I've done research on. So my view is based on reading my colleagues' research. My sense is it's just much harder to do it online from scratch than it is to do in the real world. What that means is you might want to invest your resources right now in maintaining your existing business relationships rather than trying to create completely new ones, because this is going to be just that much harder to do online. You may not have a choice, in which case what I'm saying will be only limitedly useful. But to the extent you have a choice, that's where I would allocate my energy right now. So new relationships, much harder to get off the ground. I see an interesting question about who will be most liberated if working from home becomes the new norm, women or men? That's a controversial question, and I don't know the answer. I certainly think that working from home might accentuate perhaps already existing inequalities or equalities. So I have friends who are telling me that working from home has been a mess for them because their husbands are not helping at all, right? And I also have friends who are telling me that this is great because their husbands are seeing live what is it that they do, and they're stepping up and helping them. So it's hard for me to answer what the net effect will be, but I see some arguments in both directions. There are more questions, but I think we are out of time. What we can do is keep responding to them offline, Itai, so that you can move on to the next part of the podcast. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. It's okay. Thank you very much, both of you.
All right.
And it was very interesting, as we see also from the questions. And now we're going to move to the second part, which is a kind of bridge between the part from INSEAD and the third part of the startups. So we've learned a lot about how is it to work from home and the challenges that we're facing, the corporations. And now there are many challenges that technology will solve. And this is this part, how to really work with those new technologies. And the third part is going to be 6 startups from Israel with concrete solutions to the unmet needs and the challenges that we've just learned about. So in my part, we're going to speak about the corporate open innovation, which is really the opportunity following the COVID-19. A little bit about myself, 15 years of experience working with startups as an entrepreneur, as a manager. I was heading the innovation activity of Amadeus, the travel IT from Spain. I was heading their innovation activity in Israel and launched a consulting firm called Innovate Israel, which is helping corporations to innovate with third parties like startups, academy, and other companies. And also founded 2 communities of entrepreneurs, one for travel technology and the other one is for insurance. So we know that what's in common between the following brands, BlackBerry, Blockbuster, Agfa, Kodak, Yahoo, MySpace, and others. They're all been disrupted by technology. And we don't want to end up like their brands, and we want to end up like Netflix and Amazon, which are really the opposite side of those companies that we've just mentioned. And one of the things is really, and we have many people here from corporations, many HR and CEOs, and the main thing is really the arrogance of success of corporations is that they tend to think that what used to work for them yesterday is going to keep working for them in the future. And I think that if there is one thing that we've learned from the COVID-19 in the last few months is that what used to work for is not going to be enough for the future. And the company needs to always get more and more technology in order to really be able to compete with the competitors. So this is really something to bear in mind and take out of this presentation. It's not enough what used to work for us till today. We need to innovate. And thanks, we are really lucky that thanks to technology, we can do today, we corporations can do today much more than before. For example, the telephone of Graham Bell, it took 75 years to reach 50 million users. How much time it took Zoom to reach 50 million users, or a good app or a good game? It takes by far less than 75 years. And it is thanks to technology, because technology nowadays allows us and enable corporations to integrate new technology really, really fast. And it takes corporations less time and it takes their competitors less time, which means we have to integrate new technology really, really fast. And we cannot really rely on the corporate internal R&D departments. These are a few examples of brands that were not here with us till relatively recently. Uber, the biggest taxi company without owning a single cab, and Facebook, which is the biggest content provider, and we provide the content, we create it. Alibaba, Airbnb, really a huge accommodation chain, that all those brands are relying on technology and disrupted their industry. And it's not only that, it's thanks to technology, we are facing new competitors every day. For example, Alibaba are operating hotel room service with robots, and what's in it for Alibaba to get into accommodation, but they've decided to get in, again, thanks to using new technology. And Alibaba are also in the car vending machine in China, and Amazon in the insurance. And it means that when we are waking in the morning, we think that we know who are our competitors, but we can get to know new ones that will get into our domain, into our market, thanks to using new technology. And the COVID-19 is really a great opportunity for innovation, for corporate innovation. This is an article I was releasing a few weeks ago about the day after COVID-19. And it's quite clear that it's going to be a process. It's not going to be a single date that will say we are after that. No, it's going to be in each and every country, it's going to be a different date. It's not going to be a single one. It's going to be a process. And it's quite clear that our life in the personal and in working is going to look quite different. We're going to do many things differently than we've done a few months ago. For an example, everyone now is online. Our parents, our grandparents, our employees. So it's a great opportunity, for an example, to communicate with the corporate clients via online and also with the employees for e-learning, for an example. And also, we'll see more and more DIY, do it yourself. I mean, more and more corporations are going to allow their employees and their clients to do a lot of the stuff by themselves, which is a huge opportunity to save costs because everyone is going to look now into efficiency. And again, the working from home, we just learned about it, and this whole webinar is around this important issue. And we were talking till a few months ago about a lot of cyber threat to corporations. Now it's the pandemic threat, and more corporations are going to take actions to protect their organizations for these new threats. And also, in terms of physical space, we're going to have, it's going to be in the new security standard, the areas that are free from COVID-19. And we can also see that many industries will have to get a significant assistance from the governments. Travel is one example. And more corporations are going to look into providing discounts to their clients in order to bring them back. There is a big challenge for corporations, how to sell more in less time for less resources. And also it's a good time to use the bright people, the really smart people in the corporate in order to bring new creative solutions to this new situation. And efficiency. This is something that we will all corporations are dealing with, even if corporations are not saying it loud and clear outside, but internally, all the corporations are now dealing with the efficiency challenge. And efficiency would be able to reach only with technology, only. Another thing which we've learned during the COVID-19 time is that the more corporate is relying on technology, the more flexible it is, which is super important when corporations are getting prepared to the next COVID-19 or any other pandemic threat which we're going to face in the future. So the thing that corporations are usually thinking of and need to take decisions is whether to rely on internal or external innovation. In this COVID-19, we see more and more corporations that are relying on open innovation, on external innovation, on partnership with third parties. And the concept is relying on this very smart phrase, which is really, no matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for someone else. This is someone to keep in mind. It doesn't mean that your people, corporate people, are not smart. It means that even Facebook, Google, and Amazon people are smart, but there are smarter people outside the organization. And it's a matter of statistic. And if you agree with that, then it means that the corporates need to partner with third parties, with those smart people, which in many cases, and we'll see it in the third part of this webinar, are startupists. And open innovation is really the lowest risk and greatest ROI when we are dealing with innovation. Of course, only if you do it right. And in a minute, I'm going to give you concrete tips how to really innovate smartly and efficiently with great value to the corporate. Innovation is really to stay the winner, to beat competitors, to increase quality, speed, and efficiency, to be first in the market, to reduce cost, and also to increase revenues. This is all you can get a corporate from innovation. These brands what's in common between all of them, they're all Israeli unicorns. Startups that grew to companies that worth over 1 billion euro. And these brands, together with total 536 multinational brands, are constantly looking for innovation in the Israeli ecosystem. A little bit about the Israeli ecosystem. We have one startup per less than 1,400 Israelis. Just to compare, in Europe, it's 20K. There's a lot of available funds in Israel, 30 times over Europe, 1.5 over the US. And companies like Booking.com were choosing Israel as the place to establish their innovation activity. So many corporations are using the Israeli technology, startups like we're going to meet in the third part, in order to leverage their advantages and to really create a competitive edge on their competitors. And also use innovation in order to create this extra gap, to create growth, extra growth. One of the challenges of working with startups is really to bridge the corporate culture and the startup culture. This is a huge thing to bridge, but it's feasible. This is based on PwC and Startup Nation Central, very interesting survey from 2019. The ecosystem in Israel is with over 6,000 startups, many foreign delegations, hundreds of professional investors, hundreds of accelerators, great multinationals, many, and great public universities. And what's unique with this ecosystem is that everyone is speaking to everyone. There is a lot of collaboration between these parts of the ecosystem. And when you're looking for solutions, for technology solutions, all you need to do, at least to begin with, is to Google for the domain and Israel ecosystem. For example, when you're Googling cyber ecosystem map Israel, you're going to get these leading startups that can provide you corporates with value. This is what you're going to get for IoT. This is for financial technologies, insurance technologies, retail, deep tech, travel tech, and artificial intelligence. You must say it's impressive. I like this slide very much. So when startups are approaching you, corporations, in order to partner with you, like those startups that we're going to meet really soon, they're looking for a POC with you, with corporates, for a design partnership, because it's really win-win. I mean, on one hand, the corporations are the smartest and most professional in their domain, and on the other one, startups are really the smartest and with the best technology and with high motivation to integrate their technology into a working platform of the corporate. So it's really win-win. And now I'm going to share with you 10 tips, practical tips, how to really work with those startups and overcome and bridge the culture of the corporate on one hand and the culture of the startup on the other hand. And the first thing, and I like the fact that there are many HR people here in the webinar, is to create the engagement, the commitment of the C-level, of the top management of the company, and the board member. This is super, super important. Without this commitment, you'll not be able to integrate successfully any startup technology, any technology from third party outside of the company. And one of the things is really to create to let the directors, the board members, and the top management know what innovation is and what is the value of that. Because in many boards, you see a lack of knowledge. And this is the problem. There are very smart people around the board and around the top management. There are many great managers there, very smart, but they lack this knowledge. They don't know what innovation is. And as you know, when you know something better, you do it better. So the first thing is to fill this gap and make sure that the board members and C-level executives understand what innovation is and what is the value of doing it. So one of the tips is really to have as many board members as possible who are professional in innovation and technology. and I must share with you that in Israel, it is mandatory by law to have at least one board member in each and every bank board, And there is a reason for that, and the reason is, one of them is a research that was done by MIT that shows that when you have more and more board members who are specializing in technology and innovation, the bottom line of the corporate is by far better. So this is a simple step with a huge impact. And the average age of the S&P 500 board is 60. Only 2% of the board members are below the age of 55. And we need diversity. We need as many people with the knowledge, but also with the age. I mean, in Israel, for example, again, it is mandatory in each and every governmental company that 20% of the board members are below the age of 40. And it is, again, simple step with a huge impact, because it allows suddenly the corporate board and the corporate management to speak about innovation, to allocate time for that, which is super important. The second tip is to have a single point of contact in the corporate for those third parties like startup companies and the academy that would like to approach the corporate with solutions. All those third parties, it's very complicated for them to know who is the one to reach in a huge corporate. So there needs to be one person that all the ecosystem around the corporate know that when you knock on that person's door, the door of the corporate is open for you, and there is one there that helps you along the process. The third tip, and it's again super important, especially following the COVID-19, is to update your challenges, the corporate challenges. What is more important for you? What kind of solutions are you looking for? What are the unmet needs? And share it. Share the challenges with the ecosystem. Once you share it, you magnet third parties to get back to you and offer you new solutions. The fourth tip, and again, it's super important for the HR people, is to get rid from those people that are managed by their ego. They're called not invented here type of people. People that when they meet a new solution, a new technology that was not developed by them, they reject. They're looking for answers and excuses why not to integrate those new technologies. So get rid out of those people, hire and promote only FOMO type of people, those that they have the fear of missing out parameter in their character. This is super important for 2020. And I can tell you from my experience, a little story. You all remember the group of Thai kids, the group of Thai boys that were stuck in a cave in Thailand. And the only way to reach them was with a specific and unique radio technology. I was working for such an Israeli startup that has developed this unique mesh technology. On the same time, a huge corporate also in Israel has developed the same technology with a lot more resources. Every quarter, we met their R&D chief, their chief of R&D, and we really asked for collaboration, somehow to collaborate with, to work together on tenders, on new tenders. And every time he saw our solution, he said, it's very interesting. He went to his boss, asked for another 50 developers for more budget, and promised to come back to this boss with an updated, new and better technology than ours. And every quarter we had the same meeting. And then there was this event of this occasion of in Thailand, in northern Thailand, with the kids that were stuck in a cave. And the only way to get to them was with this new technology that all around the world, there were two companies that really developed something good. A startup in Israel and a big corporate in Israel with over 10,000 employees that invested at least 10 times more than the startup in this technology. And the result was that the corporate technology didn't work and the startup technology did work. The corporate lost many, many tenders following this event. And I think that it's quite clear that corporates need to be much more open for collaboration with startup. The next tip is really to speak the startup lingo. Be available 24/7. Always keep your mind open. Respond fast to startups. When I was working for Amadeus, I would receive a WhatsApp or an SMS from a startup on Saturday, 10 p.m. at night. If I would not respond in 10 minutes, this startup would get a feeling that we're not interested, which was not wrong, was not right. It was absolutely wrong. But if you want to work with startups, you have to work in their lingo. Startups would never speak the corporate language. A corporate that wants to work with startup should adopt startup lingo, startup practice. The next tip is treat startups as partners. Startups are not suppliers, they're partners. And I know many corporates that are paying startups for the pilots in cash by immediately. The last is the end of the month. I mean, they really understand, those corporates, that the startup is not their bank. And it's not like you're paying startup in 90 days, in 60 days, in 120 days. No, you want to work with the startup, it's a partner, pay them on time and as soon as you can. This is a great signal to the ecosystem that it's worth working with this corporate. The next thing is really to allocate some budget for innovation. It's important. If you don't have the budget, tell the startup you don't have the budget. And by the way, pilots, usually you pay for it. And you don't measure the success of innovation by ROI, at least not the beginning of the first 2 years. Measure the success of innovation by the number of POCs. This is the best way. And when you're looking as a corporate to get some stock and startup, some shares, you pay for that. You don't get it for free. And the last tip is really minimize bureaucracy as much as you can. It's really difficult for a corporate, for a startup, to manage with a corporate that has tons of bureaucracy. No, create green line to work with startups. Minimize the bureaucracy, the procurement, the finance, the legal departments. They have to be in the process. They have to understand the value of working with startups. So the COVID-19 is a great opportunity to really make your corporate adopt more and more technologies. And during the COVID-19 crisis, we saw two different types of employees. Those that were staying at home watching Netflix, and other corporates that really took an advantage of this crisis in order to make their employees work, really work with Zoom, this Zoom type of people. And we see more and more corporates that took an advantage out of this crisis to really integrate more and more technologies during this crisis in order to surprise their competitors in the day after. So this is a real opportunity, and what usually we do with innovation in corporates is that we take the challenges of the corporate, the updated challenges, even during these days of COVID-19 crisis. We provide them back with a list of tens of solutions, tens of startup solutions. They choose those startups that are more interesting, and then we bring the top management into a kind of innovation bootcamp on Zoom to really learn what is the value of innovation on one hand, and on the second hand, how to really deal with startups so it will generate value to the corporate. So this was my part. You're more than welcome to approach me later on via LinkedIn, Facebook, email, WhatsApp, whatever works for you. By the way, this session is also live on Facebook under Innovate Israel. And now we are gonna allow the startups to present. I will answer the questions later on with your permission. So I will ask Flick, Shai, welcome here, to take my space now and present Flick. Shai, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Itai, can you please just release the sharing capability so I can share my screen?
Yes. I think you can take it now, no?
You cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Still getting that notion, sorry.
Yes, now you can.
Just 1 second. Yes, now I can. Okay.
Excellent. So now we were going to have like 4 minutes with each and every Israeli startup. So the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hi, guys. Thank you very much, Itai, Panish, Marco, for this great webinar and opportunity to present. So I got 4 minutes, so I'll try to be focused as possible. So I'm Shai from Flick, and I'll be presenting a couple of words about our company today. I'm the CEO and co-founder. So today we're going to talk basically on the most important part of our company, which is the human capital and knowledge. These are the people that you bring in and drive your ship. Now, today you're managing them with some sort of communication. That is any way of training, corporate communication, education, and alike. So what you're basically trying to do is you're trying to deliver a message, capability of those communication parts that Panish actually discussed about at the beginning of the webinar. And this is especially important in a work from home community where you're driving to deliver asynchronous communication, not just generally with video and the like. But today you're doing it with stale documents, presentation, PDFs, and the like. And occasionally you're using video. Now, the answer of why just occasionally you're using the most effective and I would say engaging tool there is basically video is a pain. It means that it takes a lot of time to create it, to update it, to narrate, to produce it, and the like. So you're not doing it mainly because it's cumbersome and overwhelming. And we at Flick thought what would happen if we actually create a tool that was or has the agility of a Google Doc, has I would say the simple creation process of a PowerPoint deck, the lightweight structure of an image, and has the actually extendability of a web page. So this is exactly what Flick about. It's the ability for anyone, anywhere to create bite-sized training videos in minutes, and then track, manage, embed, optimize, analyze, localize them, and share them in seconds. Now I can go all about Flick for hours, but instead of just talking about it, I want to show you a very brief demo. So this is the very simple scenario where I would like to explain to a new employee about a specific use case in our company. So I'm firing up the Flick environment. I'm choosing simply a screenshot of that environment. I'm putting it into the Flick environment. Now you can see that it's just like a PowerPoint deck environment. So I'm playing with it. I'm enlarging a bit the main screen. I'm duplicating the slides on the left. I'm adding a call to action that will indicate some sort of click within that specific page. And they're adding some sort of emphasis in that sense, right? So it's just like a drag and drop environment of a PowerPoint deck, nothing with a timeline, nothing overwhelming. Anyone basically can do it. And then I'm going to take the same image, zoom it back out again. And now I'd like to add a bit more context to the story. What does it mean? I'm going to add some text. So this is our dashboard. You can see I'm writing on the right. On the left, you can spot the menu. Click here to see the relevant information. Pay attention to the pending ticket section. So I'm correlating every sort of sentence I would say to that part. I'm going to save it. And then basically what happens, it turns into a video live and you can hear it and see it right now.
This is our dashboard. On the left, you can spot the menu. Click here to see all relevant information. Pay attention to the pending tickets section. Hope this helps.
Now it's super simple and it works like a video, but actually it's not an HTML page. Now just to elaborate of what the capabilities are, if you just want to localize that, you can say that this Flick is in English, but then we want to see it in Spanish as well. And just with a couple of clicks, that Flick turns into a Spanish version as well. So we're going to just refresh the page of that link of that flick that was created. We're going to see it in English.
This is our dashboard.
But on the bottom right,
On the left, you can spot the menu.
we can switch into the Spanish version in real time.
Este es nuestro tablero.
And that is as easy as get. And this is the exact reason why more than 25,000 teams in Fortune 500 and other SMBs and companies worldwide are so excited about what we're doing. So this has been just a bit about 4 minutes of my time. This is Flick. Just go on flick.io, sign into a trial. You can contact me directly at shai@flick.io as well. Hope it helps a lot to get what we're doing, and I'm handling over to the next startup in line. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Shai. Thank you. And now we're going to have a presentation from Michal Gartstein that will present Starlinks. Michal, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you.
Hi, Michal. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So, thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation for a great event, Itai, and thank you for such an interesting and relevant research that you presented. And I'm going to relate right into it. So my name is Michal Gartstein. I'm an organizational psychologist, a network thinker, and the founder and CEO of Starlinks. And before I dive into work from home, I want to take a broader look and really talk about, let's say, that it transfers, the technology works. Yes, and I want to talk about how companies actually work. So really relating to the research we saw before, companies have two systems that they rely on for their performance, for their success. One system is the formal system. It's linear, it's rational, it's rather stable, and we are familiar with it. It's the KPIs and the organizational structure, and we know it when we see it. The other system is the interpersonal system. This system is emergent, is dynamic, and in a complex and rapid environment like companies work in today, this is the system that we really want to rely on for critical business outcomes. So the trust that is fostered within this interpersonal system enables collaboration, enables fast flows of knowledge, enables shared leadership, which really enables companies to produce, to profit, to innovate, and to move fast within this world. But like the research we saw showed, work from home challenges this interpersonal system. So no more spontaneous coffees and random hellos in the corridor. And more than that, the current practices that we're using today to build these connections are lacking in three main ways, and especially for the work from home context. First, they lack relational data and analytics. And when everyone are scattered in different places, this data becomes very, very meaningful. Second, most interventions are local in either time or space. So one department, one leadership group, one or two events of the company per year. And thirdly, these interventions usually require a lot of managerial resources, which makes them time consuming. So what can we do? How can we overcome these gaps and use relational data to continuously build an effective interpersonal system? So that's where Starlinks comes into the picture. Starlinks uses data-driven micro-challenges to help people in building their own social capital, their own networks, thus working together to optimize the network as a whole. We start by using a moment of recognition, 4-question survey on value co-creation, and then we use organizational network analyses to identify connectivity deficiencies and opportunities. So for example, non-cohesive teams or talents at the periphery of the network, or also opportunities such as bridges between organizational silos. Then we align individual networking needs and company networking needs to produce personalized micro-challenge for each person within the network. So let's take the example that we saw before of team cohesiveness. If we see that the team is non-cohesive, Starlinks will engage team members in a series of micro-challenges, nudging them into better communicating with one another. In that sense, each person is working on their own micro challenges and on their own network, but when we do it together, people work together to build and optimize the organizational network as a whole. Now, it's important to say before I end that connectivity always mattered, and social capital was here BC, before Corona. But the context that we live in today and work from home makes the interpersonal system even more critical and more challenged to address. And we need to give it additional attention. So if you're listening into this webinar and you want to improve this interpersonal system, we want to help. We also understand that companies today are in special, context of COVID-19. And so what we want to offer you is a very focused 3-month program only for your leadership team. So to start the next normal with a network leadership, So if you're interested in more, please contact me in the details here in front of you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for listening, and let's all work better together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michal. Thank you very much. And now we're going to have Tomer Lazio from Cassiopeia. Tomer, are you with us?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, Tomer.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Itai, for organizing this wonderful webinar. A lot of interesting topics. My name is Tomer, and I'm the CPO and co-founder of Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia empower managers that lead fully or partially remote teams to maximize the workspace experience of their employees. Our solution delivers actionable insights to boost team collaboration, belonging, and mental health by analyzing communication patterns, not content, within and among teams. Let's discuss the challenge a bit, although it was discussed prior in this webinar. Remote work doesn't go anywhere anytime soon. In the near future, most companies will work fully or at least partially remote. Although it has great advantages, it creates new challenges for managers. 70% of managers reported it's harder for them to manage their team remotely. And it creates new challenges for employees as well. 66% of employees experience difficulties with loneliness, work-life balance, collaboration, communication, or in staying motivated. We are here to solve and to help managers overcome those challenges. We make it easier for managers to increase their team collaboration, belonging, and mental health, even when they work remotely. How do we do it? Our remote work solution analyzes the manager's communication patterns, such as Slack, email, Zoom, Teams, or any other app that you're using. We only analyze metadata. We do not read any content of the messages. Then we can provide actionable insights about your team communication, for example, about employees that are excluded and hadn't had one-on-one meetings with their managers for a long time. We alert when the meeting time within team increases. We provide insights about the experience for parents and new employees in your team, and much more. We send an email weekly report with actionable insights that the manager can implement right away. For example, those days everybody are talking about over-communication, setting up more meetings and calls, but remote workers need to find the right balance. One of the teams we've worked with experienced a 40% increase in meeting time daily. We highlighted this insight to the team manager, and the manager shared this insight with his team and discovered that the team is suffering from overload because they don't have time to work on their own personal tasks. And they found that most meetings are not productive. This insight allowed the manager, together with the team, to find the right balance and only set up the necessary meetings, while decreasing the stress environment within the team. This is only one example, and we have many more that can empower remote teams. A few things before I end. It's important to mention that we take our user privacy very seriously. We only analyze communication patterns. We do not scan or read any content. In addition, the system is designed with the highest security standards, and we are GDPR compliant. The onboarding process is easy and takes less than 4 days, and we can provide instant insights and impact. To help companies during the COVID-19 outbreak, we now offer Cassiopeia remote work solution free for 2 months. Thank you so much for your time. And please feel free to contact me in the email below or directly to me at tomer@Cassiopeia. I will send it on the chat. And if you would like to empower your team and prepare them for working better, even if they're working remotely, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tomer. And now we're gonna have Yariv Rel from Totem Time. Yariv, are you with us? We can't hear you. You need to unmute your mic. Yes.
Now?
Yes, now we can hear you very well.
Good. So very nice to meet you all, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to all my fellow startupists, and thank you for the guide from INSEAD. It was very interesting, and I will actually start off right from what you mentioned as lack of social interaction being one of the problems that we see in remote working. What are we offering? What are we basically offering? I am not a doctor, of course, but I will just briefly share what we see in coronavirus. Social distancing is here to stay for some time. We started in the US, a large organization are staying away from the office until the end of the year. Each location is different, each company is different, but social distancing, allowing people to eat together, touch, interact in a way we did before is really difficult. And also after Corona times, things that are remote, etc., they cannot interact remotely as they are, of course, one by one. So what do? We do multiple things, but in 4 minutes, we'll focus only on remote team building. And I will explain what it is and what we're doing, and hopefully it will be clear. There are many different things that employees and companies fun. You can see a yoga class, you can do an exercise, get a great lecture. All of those things are great, and they offer employees a great relief from the day-to-day at home. However, what they are all missing is the team part, the social interaction that was mentioned before that is missing. How do you allow people to interact together when it's not allowed, or we are in very far from each other? So this is one example from one of our experiences. Basically, we do a quest where all employees or part of the employees in the company, it never mind, one is getting one reader, the other reader, and the third part is seeing a movie, and he needs to communicate to his teammates about what he's seeing. This movie specifically is in Chinese, making it a bit more difficult. And by solving riddles together, doing challenges together, and everything really to the best of our abilities, people come together and they gain back this fun way to work together and knowing one another on a personal level. A bit about what we are doing. We are a tech company, technology we call Experience Builder. We can create multiple types of experiences. We work with the best storytellers that we can find. This is something we do from day one. All of the things that you can see here, AR, VR, different types of riddles, dialogues, multiplayers, multi-line of stories. We mesh all of them together to create amazing experiences for multiple domains. And now I would like to talk to you about Kidnap. This is our latest and greatest for the remote activity. It's a 90-minute action-packed activity. You can do it for as little as 3 people or 300 people teams. You can customize for your company, or you can use the plain vanilla version. It was created by one of the authors of the Amazing Race. It's really an amazing opportunity for together to compete, to use their mind. It's like a giant virtual escape room. We offer it in a discount for everyone from the panel. That was me. Actually, I was able to do it under 4 minutes, which is good. About remote team building and other gamification that we offer in the workplace. And as I said, if you mention that you participate in this webinar, we offer a 30% discount for any activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yariv. The line was not that high quality, but it was good enough in order to get it. So now we're gonna have Dror and Enerjoy. Dror, are you with us? We can't hear you yet.
Okay.
Yes, we can
Hear me
see
now?
you and hear you. Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Bo, the CEO of AVIV, and I will take the next 4 minutes to share our solution with you. Can you see my screen now?
Dror, can you somehow improve
Yes.
the line quality? Maybe we will even skip to Arik and get back to you. So you can try to make it a little bit better. It's hard to hear you. Arik, are you with us?
Yeah.
So let's kind of create a little change. So we'll allow Dror to improve the line quality. Hi, Arik. You can start presenting. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hope everybody can see my screen. Yes, great. So, hi everybody. I'm Arik Waldman, CEO of Glean Labs, and we automatically map the skills, knowledge, and experience of tech employees in large organizations. Now, we've heard a lot today about the different trends stemming from COVID-19, but I'd like to focus on one piece of data, which is 70% of companies either froze or plan to freeze hiring due to COVID-19. And we're seeing that with some of our customers as well, and when you combine it with some of the other trends, to me, it boils down to one thing, which is doing more with what you have. How do I maximize what I do with and for my existing workforce? And in order to do that, companies need to change the way they operate. Just last week, McKinsey published an article talking about how COVID-19 would accelerate some of the trends relating to the future of work, such as reskilling and upskilling your existing workforce. According to McKinsey, in order to companies need to take is to map and identify the skills of their existing employees. There are a lot of other things you can build on top of that, but that's the first step, that's the basis. Makes a lot of sense. The problem is large companies simply don't have that kind of data about their employees and their capabilities. And they also don't know how to map the skills at scale. Typically what you see them doing today, you have months over months of countless meetings of committees of managers coming up with 10 or 20 or 50 skills they think they should map all of their employees by. Then they send surveys, asking employees to manually self-assess their own skills, which unfortunately most employees don't bother doing. Other companies will have somebody sit individually with each employee or pay consulting companies millions of dollars to essentially do the same thing. And this entire process can take as long as 2 years to complete. It doesn't work, which is why most companies don't do competency mapping. But today, more than ever, they have to, which is where we come in. Glean automatically maps tech competencies in the organization based on evidence. Glean integrates with the company's operational and collaboration systems used by tech employees on a daily basis, GitHub, Jira, Slack, Confluence, whatever the system may be. And from data on actual work and processes taking place, our machine learning algorithms can extract and map the competencies in the organization. And the beauty is that employees and managers don't need to do anything. Everybody just does their job as they would anyway, and Glean creates and updates everything automatically. And there are a lot of applications to having that type of data. For example, say that for an important project, I'm looking for a developer with a specific skill set and domain expertise. With Glean, I can instantaneously find the most relevant people across the entire company based on objective and comparable parameters. And we know how to do that because every tech employee has a profile created for them automatically, showing a snapshot of what they're capable of. So in this case, Evelyn, for example, just does her job as she would anyway, and Glean creates her profile and updates it over time as Evelyn evolves, learns new skills, moves to new roles, and works in new products. And that completely changes the visibility that the company has into its workforce and into the different processes. Now, beyond the individual employee data, Glean can also provide insights on an aggregated level, insights that could be used in a variety of processes, from strategic processes like workforce planning, through operational processes like project staffing, down to individual employee decisions like internal mobility, the Lean helps companies maximize their existing workforce and transform into a data-driven organization. We're working with some of the biggest companies in the world, but I'm out of time, so I'll be happy to tell you more offline. Please feel free to contact me. We'll be happy to help you maximize your existing talent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arik. It was excellent. And now we're gonna move back to Dror and hopefully have it with a better connectivity. Hi, Dror.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? It's better?
It's better. Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So I just demonstrate, you know, the physical condition that must be, no. Let me turn the video maybe and the line will be better. It is better now?
Let's try.
Okay. Let me turn my screen. You know, we're talking about work from home and the physical conditions like a good enough internet line, you know, must be addressed. But after we you know, we address these needs, we still need to take care the motivation and the emotional aspect of managing remotely the team. And this is what I'm going to talk on the next 4 minutes. It's okay, can I go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So my name is Dror Cohen. I'm the CEO of Enerjoy, and we are dealing with employees' motivation, especially at the sales and customer service units and teams. We know that the main challenge of work from home, and it was previously discussed by the speaker before me, is in the manager side, the lose of control and informal communication, and from the employee side, it's the feeling of loneliness and isolation. And what we are offering is first to address two main guidelines. One, increase in communication, different ways to communicate with your employees. Second, to provide over-positivity. We call it over-positivity, to overcome the feeling of loneliness that leads sometimes to depression, etc. A few words about Joy. We are a SaaS solution, web application, and also mobile application. We know motivation influence performance, and our main assumption, it's fact now, when it comes to employee motivation, one size does not fit all. Meaning each employee is motivated by different triggers, different factors, and he has eventually different motivation styles. Our secret sauce is to combine psychology. We're working with researchers from 3 academies here in Israel and in the United States with an AI abilities to provide and trigger each member in a way that will fit his motivation style. And it goes along with his routine day by day. It's not an offline, it's an online. So I will focus in those 4 actions, and I will demonstrate how we provide our solution. We're talking about transparency and clarity, to create a sense of a challenge, to give continuous feedback, and to reward your employees. So this is a screenshot of our dashboards for the manager and for the employees, open from any browser at home. It provides clarity about the performance, the goals, the progress, and other data. The most important thing is how to create a sense of a challenge. And our algorithm automatically and autonomously create different types of challenges that includes business goals along with other factors that meet and fit motivation styles of each and every member. It could be a group challenges, personal challenges, competitions, short challenges like few hours challenges or long one, and all those parameters, after a few weeks of analyzing the usage data along with the trends in their performance, are created, personalized to their motivation styles, meaning each and every member at your team will get different challenges during the day or during the month. Third thing is give feedback. Our algorithm can give feedback not only for related to the results, but also to their effort and their improvement. Two more very important aspects of giving feedback is to know what will motivate more the employees, like individual feedback or group feedback, personal feedback, or public, like recognition. Now it gives also tips to the manager to do it manually, but our algorithm do it autonomously and automatically all the time. The last aspect of building motivation is how to reward them. Because each member is getting personalized interactions, challenges during the month, everyone actually is moving forward. And by that, they are earning points during the month. Even the 80% of the middle, even the new recruitments, and they can save the points and actually redeem it by in the Joy Store, the online shop. They can redeem real prices or virtual prices. They can save it for a few months and buy expensive item, or do it in a short period of time. In that way, we can provide motivation not only to the 10% of the talented performers that most of the time are self-motivated and they are already in the game, but we can focus on the 80% that need to be motivated all the time. And the algorithm that does it automatically can save a lot of time to the manager to focus on other tasks that he usually need to do. So we invite you to connect us by this email or from our website to learn more about our solution and how we implemented in the last year with almost 40 organizations in the world. Thank you for the time. I hope the line was good enough to hear me. And thanks Itai for this webinar.
Thank you, Dror. Thank you very much, Dror. Thank you very much, everyone. We just asked you a few questions about the value that you've got from the startups and with the contact information of the startupists. Professor Purnam and Dr. Minervini, I would like to thank you. If you would like to conclude and say something, you're more than welcome.
No, we just had a great time listening to this wonderful startup.
And Marco?
Same here. The work you're doing is amazing, and all of them are extremely interesting. So if you want to keep in contact, we're happy to be in contact with them.
Excellent. It was great having this webinar. Hopefully soon we will be able to meet each other physically, face-to-face, and not online via Zoom.
Hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time and effort, and hopefully you've got some valuable insights out of this webinar. Thank you very much.